Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Alibaba.com Transformer Talks. My name is Erica Chen, and I'm dialing in from my home in New York. And I'd like us all to welcome our special Transformer guest today, Mr. Five Mualimm-ak, founder and CEO of Incarcerated Nation Network. Five, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy and honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us and everyone. Five has done some incredible things in his life. And so I'll let him introduce himself and maybe tell us a little bit about the Incarcerated Nation Network and what it does.
Yes, definitely. The Incarcerated Nation Network began as a humble collective of post-incarcerated leaders that were always outside the room in the conferences. We were never invited in as guests. They were speaking about us without us. Some of us decided to launch our own projects and come together as a network to service our own and sort of people who are disenfranchised in society and those most marginalized. And today we have grown to about 400 nonprofits nationally as a collective unit of people directly impacted, all working to end mass incarceration, but create new sort of different ways of thinking about how we service our people in the community, but also how we provide second chances and alternatives to incarceration. Yeah. And so from advocacy to media, to films, to documentaries, to productions, to reports, to films, to all these sort of different networks to educate the world around conditions of confinement, but also the collateral consequences of mass incarceration, and more so how it affects our young people.
That is fascinating. And we'll talk a little bit more about how exactly the network functions. But what's interesting is that you mentioned it's a network, right? It's really a collective of different organizations. What does that really mean, and why did you structure the organization that way? And why is it a nation?
Well, we live in a world where we have over 2 million people incarcerated. About 125 to 135 million people are previously incarcerated. And so our mission and our vision and sort of the problem statement is that if you take every prison and jail across this nation, you put them together, that'll be a state the size of Texas. And if you include the 2 million people who are currently incarcerated and the 125 and ever growing population of people who are previously incarcerated, you have an entire nation that is disenfranchised from voting rights and from freedoms that every other citizen is. And it's growing every day more than any other country on the planet Earth. And so with that, we consider ourselves the incarcerated nation. And a lot of things that we fight for are unified under having equal rights, the ability to return back to society and be productive, the ability to not have a pervasive system attacking you because of the color of your skin or your socioeconomic status. And so with that, collectively, we began creating projects from the personal experience self-sense. And so those who were locked up when they were young have juvenile projects. Those who were aging in prison have release of aging in prison projects. And so all of us sort of are expertise in our field. And far too often people who are the closest to the problem, also closest to the solution, may know the solution, but farthest from the resources to actually enact that change. And so as a network, we offer a variety of expertise. A lot of our media is done because media networks, film companies, and documentary studios just come to us because they can get a wide array of professionals across a stream. Working with media networks like The Guardian on a regular basis for over the last 10 years. Some of our calls from them are across subjects from youth in prison to parole to reentry to how people end up in prison to marginalized communities in the first place. And so as a network, we're stronger together.
That's amazing. And Five, how long has this organization been in existence, and what led you to start it to begin with?
Well, I did time incarcerated. I did over 12 years. I was exonerated because of the Innocence Project, but they locked up the cops who locked me up. And throughout that time, I spent a significant amount of time in solitary. That is a torturous condition that allows people to deteriorate while being confined to a small cell 24 hours a day, often for years, often for decades on end. And I was released to society. They just was like, hey, Five, you know how you was talking about you're innocent, you didn't do anything for all these years. Well, it turns out you're right. Here's $40 as a bus ticket. Good luck. When I came home, I launched a few nonprofit organizations to make the changes that I seen was wrong in the system. That actually landed me back in prison. They violated me because of that. I came home 2012 and I passed over 80 pieces of legislation, incubated countless projects to address those issues. And now today, it's a little bit of pride in me to say that 10 years later, people coming home are being hired to help other people coming home when that was a violation. And so sometimes our own sacrifices go to pave new ways and create new ideas.
I cannot think of a better transformation story and a more amazing transformers. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yes.
Five, you're calling me or you're dialing in from New York City, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
That's great. And I also understand that you were a 2021 recipient of the David Prize. And to those who are not familiar, the David Prize it's a prize that's given out annually to 5 different New Yorkers who are making transformative impact on New York City. And Five was one of the recipients last year. Five, can you tell us a little bit more about who nominated you? How was the process like? And more importantly, what are you going to do with the $200,000 cash prize?
Right. Yes. Well, the David Prize is something revolutionary. You know, they had a first cohort. One of the youth that we work with had an idea of creating compost for the world and for the city to make the city a safer space, but more so economically safe, but also thinking about climate change and the pollution and things that need to happen in order for urban farming to happen. And so we was building farms and that collective. So he won last year. And so it was all too real, as in when someone says they want to support you without any deliverables, just on the fact that you're helping the city, it's a little unbelievable. And so at first I was hesitant, but the David Prize is very persistent on supporting those who support the city. And it was nominated by a few people anonymously, but I applied and I won. The process is like $100,000 for the next 2 years. And so I just immediately rented space for my young people to live because they're on the streets. You have children that in our program and our work as alternative to incarceration to provide housing for them is the ultimate solution. I can give you a scholarship to go to college. I can get you employed part-time. But if you're sleeping in a train, that's not going to be effective for you. And here in New York, we have 66,000 people homeless every night. After every homeless shelter bed is full, we still have that overflow. And 40% of those are young adults. 40% of those are kids. And the city, sometimes their answer is to add more cops and add more arrests. And we believe that young people, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, they're still kids. At 18 to 21, 18, you can be kicked out. Meanwhile, at 16, you're considered an adult in the criminal justice system. And a lot of youth can't get a lease until they're 21, yet they're homeless, 18, 19, 20, and sort of sleeping on the streets and doing whatever they can to do survive. Well, we just say we can provide a different pathway. And if you already have years on probation, then we can plan those years out to bring you to stability. And that is saving the future college students, future presidents, future legislators of this city are made up of those most marginalized. So.
That's amazing. And you already mentioned some of those stats, but why do you think Incarcerated Nation is especially important or in this moment in time in New York City? And then also what are plans for the organization going forward?
Yes. Well, in New York City, it's a very unique space. You know, they call it New York, because it's really two cities. It's really the tale of two cities. It is the richest place to live in the world. And I work directly in the poorest district in the United States of America. The average household income is $11,000 for 8 people. It is the highest rate of sexually transmitted diseases, highest rate of asthma, of course, COVID-19 and the impact of that, the highest rate of pollution. And so all of this is compiled in a state that has so many resources, so many different opportunities, but missing the undercurrent of the younger people growing up to be able to take advantage of that. And so at this moment, We're in a sort of revolutionary time in New York City. This is the first time that every district attorney in the city signed on to a piece of legislation we co-wrote called the Less is More Act. We work with Catal. We're part of a collective group, and that Less is More Act is saying, yeah, DAs are saying, yeah, we have too many young people under my control. There is no reason why we should be constantly locking up kids for hopping on a train or just doing things that teenagers do. And so every district attorney has made a commitment to not prosecute some crimes that aren't really crimes for kids. And then someone has to build a community to support them. Somebody has to build housing. Somebody has to be the sort of parent to say, I got you. Wherever you're staying, go get your things. Come on, we'll figure this out together. You know, whether it's continued education, let me get your life on track. And who better to do that than those who have made mistakes in their past or have been through those wrong tracks? And so what we do is we sort of break off those two ends, people going into the prison and then people coming home, and put them together, and they work amazingly. If you're incarcerated, you did 10, 20 years, you have distance from your own children. Sometimes our young adults are the first interaction they get. They miss the learning curve of technology or what's happening in the world right now, how to reacclimate back into society. And then on the other end, you have people who are most experienced, who have been through the worst situations in life, being in these children's lives and these young people's lives, saying, I was you once and I can prevent that. And so what we do is we actually take people when they come home and face them with a younger version of them and say, what would you do for this young person to basically stop yourself? And what would you do in that situation? And so there's no problem with those generations relating. The other issue is I don't have enough housing. In New York State, it is very hard to get property. The value is so high, yet we have so many homeless. So our program is not only training them, housing them, but it's an entryway with a trauma-informed care curriculum that teaches them to be credible messengers so they can be advocates for themselves and their own communities. Yet, once you complete that, you can go into 12 other academies that are career-based. What is next for us? Our next academy is Mikey Likes It Academy. It is a ice cream brand that we have in New York. We have two locations, one downtown on 199 Avenue A. The other one is 2500 Frederick Douglass Boulevard in Harlem. And we exclusively only hire the youth from our program. And so we have an ice cream route. We believe ice cream, not incarceration. We train them in food handlers. We train them to get their vendor's license. We take them through banking classes, civics classes, the sort of systems that the public education system is not teaching our young people. They don't feel any investment into their neighborhoods, into their communities. And when violence happens, it impacts them as well, and they are the best messengers for change. And so throughout this process, we have been working with the state, with the probation department, with the individual systems, the Manhattan DA, the new Manhattan DA, not the old one, but the new one. And so I believe that we're going to have some innovative programming and opportunities for young people that never were seen before. Yes. And the opportunity is also to extend into businesses. It also protects homeowners. And so right now during this pandemic, you have homeowners who have an extra unit or maybe have something to subrent. And this allows them to not only be functional, but continue to pay their bills, pay their taxes while they're supporting another young person coming up and becoming stable themselves. And so the business model itself works because you're taking underprivileged young adults and showing them a new career path. It is so transformative and so amazing to see these young people wanting to go to college, wanting to improve themselves, want to get the professional licenses that they need to help others. I kind of call it Pokemon because we train them, we make sure that they're focused, and then heal other people, and then we kind of like throw them back out there, and they empower other young people.
That's incredible. Sorry, I disappeared for a second. I'm back. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
And so it's incredible how you're sort of introducing systemic change, right, from all sorts of angles. I'm curious if you could share maybe a story or two about how you have sort of helped a youth or the formerly incarcerated really transform their lives through the work that Incarcerated Nation's doing.
Yes. Well, one of the things that we do is that we support people previously incarcerated, those incarcerated, and their families. Across the board, some of the projects that we've incubated and helped build, we've encouraged them to build youth and family development departments because you have to include the whole family in that support system. Um, we provide reintegration services, housing, college level scholarships, internships, trauma informed care, a career path into the public health with many other health fields. Some of our young people come to us before they get in trouble. Like, I don't want to go down this route. I want to go to medical school. And so we work with scholarship programs to get them internships elsewhere, but also to sort of put them on the right track career wise with mentors. And so we have a huge college network of students as well. And so I'm not just going to send you to Columbia social work school. I'm going to send you there with a mentor that's going to help you every step of the way while he's in second year, you're in your first year. We create residual income producing systems, basically community based system solutions to incarceration. Instead of incarcerating this young person for 5 or 10 years, incurring millions onto the state, we'll take them, right? We integrate internships initially with different businesses. So you have a choice of different career paths that you can kind of experience. Most of our young girls want to go into childcare until we connect them with a daycare center. And then they're like, I don't want to do that. I want to go to medical school. And so we prepare for those shifts and those changes in their lives because they're young people. They may change their mind next week and be on a different path. It is our duty as responsible adults and New Yorkers to make our better city safer and better, is to empower them, lead them on that track, and stay with them. One of my youth, Muhammad, right? He came to me after being on probation. He had a weapons charge. He was robbing someone. And we worked it out so that him and the person that he attempted to rob resolved their solutions in a trauma-informed, intermediate way. That mediation led to, like, what is your real problems? Why are you not attending high school? Well, I have problems with these group of kids that live around that school. Great. Then the solution is I'm going to connect you with this other school, Wildcats Academy, that also is going to pay you a 15-hour internship. And then they send them back to us because of our unique partnership for 15 hours of internship. Now, that 15 hours may not encumbrance the entire week of his spare time, but step by step. Now you're finishing junior high school. Now I'm taking you to speak at colleges, different universities. And you're like, hey, why can't I get on this campus? Yeah, I can get you in there. Now he's in school part-time. That's the majority of his time. Then he's on campus and he's like, yo, it's great. I got the scholarship, but I'm starving. Like, if I don't get a part-time job, I'm not going to be able to eat. And so we end up filling up his day one by one. He went through the Youth Speakers Institute. He was on the Governor's Raise the Age Task Force. He trained other young adults to be mentors to other young people. And this sort of experience built him up as he's in his second year in college. He owns his own business now, which is the Young Adult Print Shop. They have a company in which he then produces T-shirts for other nonprofits and organizations. And that allows him to reserve income while he's attending his third year in college. And so that stability comes also because he lives in our property. And so his rent, we use the city FEPS vouchers, city's resources, which we had Section 8. Our goal is to be supportive housing because our young people, they really suffer from MICA, mental health and chemical addiction. And these sort of things create mood disorders. They're not employable at that time, right? Because the trauma is so impactful on them, they would actually disrupt another functional business. But once they become stable, once they have a purpose in life, once they sort of get the scoop of what not to do from so many people who are mentoring them not to stay on that path, they productively be the best members of society. They advocate for other young adults, and then they go out there to provide resources for others. And so Muhammad is a point person for other kids at the college. The high school in which he was on the basketball team, he's now the coach for. And it's just an honor to see him, even as he's printing and manufacturing other items for other nonprofits. It's a pay by the day model for our other youth. And so it's also a little bit of time that he can say, I was once you to the younger youth, right? Coming into this program. So they see a step that's not too far away. Sometimes as older mentors, we done been through college. We're so far removed from them. They don't see us as the next step. They kind of see us as mentors in which they would love to be 10, 20 years from now. As a business model, it allows us to offer businesses a partnership and saying, do you have a need for young people? I'm talking about young people who are already trained, already have their vendor's license. So you don't have to train them. You don't have to pay them to train them. And we'll pay 20 hours of their work week. You'll have a full-time employee if you just hire them part-time. So we have partnership with Shake Shack. We have partnerships with other clothing businesses as well, other smaller businesses, like they have a franchise of barbershops in Harlem and New York as well. And so we train them, get them their barber certificate, and I'm sending you a barber, right? And so with that, the innovative support doesn't stop there. That same barbershop, we fundraised, got a $5,000 grant. Now we're giving out haircuts to young adults who need to go on interviews and going to school. And so that sort of support system doesn't end, because in this pandemic, we're also doing emergency food services, emergency PPE. And so if you have 5 years on probation, the community doesn't need for you to disappear. They need for you to be visible, seen in the neighborhood. Like, oh, I know that boy. He is now helping deliver groceries. He bought me masks. He helped me with my COVID test. And this sort of system repays each community district by district to make us a stronger city. As far as small businesses, we offer internship and mentorship guidance and signups. So we will come to your organization, sign you up to be a summer youth provider, and then provide you with young adults for a certain period in the summer, because we know the summer sales and sort of summer season cause more people and businesses to shop. More people are outside. A lot of people are off of school. And so businesses need the extra help. But to me, that's an on-the-job training for that young person, right? It also builds that business relationship to say that if you want to hire somebody, hire the young people who are already experts in that field that we've trained, but also that can be a loyal part of your business and a loyal part of your family as we extend them to you, and you're helping this person transform their lives.
That's amazing. And here at Alibaba.com, right, we're creating a global community of small and medium-sized businesses. And so for those of you who are interested, please check out Incarcerated Nation Network. The URL is listed on the screen here. And also we've conveniently included a QR code. Five, sort of in your journey, right, of making change and transforming lives of the youth and sort of those around you, I'm sure there have been setbacks and challenges. So I'm curious how you overcome those setbacks and challenges, and what kind of advice do you have for our listeners out there, our audience out there, as they embark on these journeys of transformation for themselves and also for their communities?
Can I just say that at one point in my life, I returned to society, and society has given up on people returning home. Doesn't matter that I didn't do anything to end up there, or that the officers who were locked up is the reason why I got there. But my new life, I had to make sacrifices. A lot of people will, look me up and they'll see me in the White House with Obama. I was in a homeless shelter. I was literally sleeping in the streets doing this work. I'm on the governor's task force. I'm working with the new mayor and the old mayor, and all this time I'm in a shelter, right? The majority of the work I've done over the 60, 70 nonprofits that I incubated, I never got a paycheck from that. That's movement work. And so over the 10 years of work, legislation, policy, stop and frisk, closing Rikers, all these sort of things that I was the only person a part of. 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of advocates doing that work. 10 years ago, there wasn't solitary survivors. I had to literally go state to state, train people and become advocates on their own behalf. And there was no paycheck for that. And so to do this work, the challenges were extremely hard. It was a while before the movement, when Columbia University first did a documentary on me, nobody knew that all of the 6 o'clock meetings, I was missing the free meal at the shelter. And so now we have food at those meetings. Now we have Metro cards at those meetings. And sometimes you have to be that example. You have to own that pain in order to show people that pain and say, no one else should go through this. And so I've not only drafted and worked to advocate for legislation that has changed that laws that impacted that harm, but also created solutions 100% out of my pocket. I mean, we've had funding small in there, but we was majority a grassroots organization for a very long time. Some of the things we did were pretty amazing because we were pioneers to do things that people didn't think of doing. The idea of building a virtual reality solitary cell like I did with Guardian, Google, Chicken and Egg was because I used to build physical cells and try to lock legislators in there to show them that this is torture. We built cells and dropped them in Congress, had congressional hearings. And so it's not easy. It was never easy for me, and it's even harder for people coming home who are disenfranchised. But I don't think I would change any of that for the world because it made me who I am. And the avenues and projects that I've created now, I'm able to deal with them because no problem is as bad as where I've been. When you've been homeless in the street, you're at the bottom of the well. And so I never go back down to the bottom, but I know what it is and I know how to get up from there. And so every day I see people trying to start their own projects, and they really have what is missing and needed. It is a solution, but they just may need the support. And so I will sacrifice, find the way to support them, build their project up. And sometimes they're better off than me, but it takes that. It takes someone to help others. And I've helped so much. It's a network, I've helped so much that we have a network to surround the problem. Because New Yorkers, we don't give up. We fight back, and we also become back stronger, And that has always been in my heart, seeing this city. I remember I was in Washington Square Park. I was giving out food because it kept me with food and allowed me to feed my children. And this guy just walked up to me, this one guy, and he was like, "Hey, what you doing? Can I help you?" Turns out he was Patrick Markey, and he ran like the entire coalition for the homeless. And he was like, "So you do this by yourself?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to help." And he said, "Okay, I'll meet you out here tomorrow." And then the next day it was like a whole fleet of vans, and now it's a service site. And so sometimes by stepping out of your own comfort zone, helping the next person, even learning about your trauma and your triggers so that you can help the next young person learn about their trauma, is sort of how we grow as New Yorkers, but how we heal from the bottom up. And so I operate still in the poorest district, United States of America, New York 15. It is so much needed. We need everything. And it's humbling to know that the work that I'm doing is not only saving lives, but on a daily basis, I have like 100 kids. So I'm like the biggest parent in the city, I feel like. And these are young people right now. While I'm speaking to you, my young people are at 3 different events, speaking for the others. They're at another jail event that is speaking about solitary confinement and young people in there. And the service work that they do is to help other mothers and family members go visit their children. And so these are the young people outside the jail, giving cups of water, giving cups of coffee. It's cold out here. Do you need a blanket? Do you want a free package for your child? Giving you information about the visit, what to expect. And that's sort of their expertise range because they're in and out so much. And what we do is we transform that into skills. Even those who are drug dealers, I'm just going to be honest. We say you make more money selling hats. And we order from Alibaba.com, which is a great resource for getting wholesale products and actually creating our businesses. And so our lines 100% support our work, from candles to incense to a clothing line we have to our print shop. All of those funds empower the young people to then be entrepreneurs, but also that they're for the first time learning business. Now that you have a bank account, now you have to take this banking class. Now you have to understand capital interest. Now you have to understand your place in society as a taxpayer. And so with all of these sort of things, I just use them as different teaching tools. For me, it was growing up. For them, they're missing that.
Wow. Well, thank you, Five, for all that you do and for sharing your amazing story and the amazing work that you do. Best of luck with the organization. And then for those watching or listening, I highly encourage you to check out incarceratednationnetwork.org. And Five, thank you, and hope to stay in touch to follow your journey.
Yes, heal people, heal people. Thank you.